What is product management? Hello everyone and welcome to a new video from Career Talks, where I chat with professionals about their career paths, daily job responsibilities and how they manage to land their jobs. In this video I chat with Brandon. Brandon studied computer engineering at the New York University of Abu Dhabi. He then started his career as a data analyst at the National Commercial Bank of Jamaica. After a year of being a data analyst in Jamaica, Brandon moved to Dubai to work as a product manager with one of the biggest online marketplaces called Noon. After a year and a half working with Noon, Brandon moved to London to work with Beamery as a technical product manager. Beamery is a talent lifecycle management platform that offers services to companies like Amazon and Uber. In this video, Brandon explains what is product management and what does the product management process look like. I hope you'll like this video. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Thank you for watching. I think would be a bit relevant here to tell us a bit more what is product management for someone maybe not really familiar with that concept.
Yeah, it's an interesting question because people in product actually struggle to explain it. So
Yeah.
especially for someone who's not heard of it before, I use kind of like an analogy. So if you imagine an orchestra and the conductor in the orchestra, so you have all these different instruments. Some of them run on the same rhythm, some run on different ones, yet they have to come together harmoniously to create this piece of music.
An output,
exactly. A product manager is like the conductor in the orchestra because you work with different teams. You work with engineers, you work with marketing, you work with sales and your business stakeholders.
Yes.
And everyone needs to be aligned and just behind whatever you're building. And so they almost have to make sure everyone is in harmony to deliver that product.
Nice.
So that's at a high level what a product manager does. So they are responsible for essentially shaping the vision for a product, making a plan behind it and working with those different teams to deliver.
Makes sense. Maybe I'd like to touch a bit more on how that process works. So does it mean that, I know it really differs in different firms, but maybe from your own experience or whatever, whatever way you'd like to structure your answer, but does that mean you have an existing app and then as a company I hire someone after I launch the app to study what are the customer problems and then launch a new product, or adjust or let's say fix technical issues with the existing ones? Like how does that cycle work? Or is it the people who've built that app stay in their position and then work on the products they've built? If you can touch a bit on this point.
Yeah, so you're right. I think it depends on the company and I think it depends on the product they have. So you can either be hired to take over a product that already exists, and the work that you do is around improving and building upon it. Or for earlier stage companies, they actually don't have the product built at all, and you bring in the product manager to help build
and you still be called a product manager.
And you'd still be called a product manager. Like it just, what happens is you enter at different stages of the life cycle, just depending on the company that you're going to. So they might bring you in with a product that's already out, or they might bring you into a product that's not out.
Makes sense.
It's more popular to be hired into a role where there's already a product and they need someone to sort of take it even further. And that could be making improvements, additions, that could be taking it to market. It really depends on the company, but I've been in both situations where I built something that wasn't there or have taken on something that was already there. So it just depends.
Can you tell us actually a bit more about these two, like your two experiences? So is it both at Beamery where you had the chance to build a product and then work on an existing one, or is it at Noon and Beamery?
I would say between both. Between both. So at Noon, it was more that there was a product there, but it hadn't received attention for probably months or years. So I worked on the seller side of Noon's marketplace,
Which is something similar to...
So like at Amazon, they have Seller Central. So I worked on Noon's equivalent, basically. So I didn't work on the Noon.com website that we would see to shop.
Okay.
I worked on the seller platform where they can see like their sales, their shipments.
Interesting.
And I was responsible for the finance section of that platform. So basically how sellers understand their fees, their taxes for invoices, just making sure that they can understand their business performance. That didn't really exist before I had joined Noon. There was a basic platform there, but there were so much improvements that needed to be made.
Yeah.
And so they actually brought me in just to make that experience, that seller financial reconciliation experience, a bit more user-friendly, let's say.
Perfect. Yeah. If you don't mind, can you tell us a bit more on that? Like what's the process looking like? Where do you start, right? You're hired to launch this new product or improve it. Do you go talk to customers, or do you go talk to the CEO, tell him, I want to know more? Like, how does it happen, the process, basically?
Yeah, so in product management, I think there'll be slight variations depending on where you read, who you ask. But there's a general process that you follow when you ship any product or any enhancement to a product, right? And so the first part is called problem discovery, which is really where you go wide. So it's almost like a double diamond, we call it. So the first half of the diamond, when you kind of diverge, you kind of explore the problem space that you had. So like you say, you talk to customers and understand what problems they've really been experiencing with using your platform. You talk to business stakeholders to understand from their perspective what those problems are. Everyone will have different perspectives, different variations of the problems. But really that's what that process is, just to kind of lay them out on the table and just understand what causes grievances in that space. And then the second part of that diamond, where it comes back together, is called problem definition. And that's where you really go through the problems and kind of identify which ones are the most pressing or the most urgent that need to be solved now. It's really a prioritization and a trade-off sort of thinking and discussion, which is a core part of being a product manager. And once you define that problem, you go into work as to how to actually solve it. So I think when I first joined Noon in that situation, it was a lot of just talking to people in the company and customers to understand kind of what is the current state of your experience and why.
And when it comes to that like converging part of the diamond, I'm assuming you also need to consider the company's priorities, because you might say, oh, like we need to launch this feature in the product. I think it will, and I'm pretty sure you get some retaliation, or like some, oh no, like we can't do this now, we don't have. So is it that you have to set a full problem statement with the cost, headcount needed, like if you can tell us a bit more about the details a product manager would mention in that final problem statement to convince stakeholders or to actually start with the execution.
So I think one of the things a product manager will always have to answer from everyone is why. Why is this important to do? And so, yes, like you're right in what you said, that typically what you do needs to somehow align with what the business is doing, what the business strategy is, what goals they have. And I think that's kind of the art and the trick in product management is that you have to figure out how to do that.
Convince,
sometimes it's straightforward and sometimes it's not. And I think that's where it gets a bit more nuanced. And so, but I think it really just depends on the product, like what details are necessary to include. So for sure, the why, just an explanation of what the problem is, like what your users are experiencing, why it's painful for them, how it makes them feel. That's probably the most important thing a product manager has to answer to, and to make clear to everyone. So when we go back to the analogy of the conductor, making sure everyone is aligned and bought in and harmonious, that's where it starts. The why, why are we doing this? Why is it important? Because if people are not bought into that, you'll face issues and headwinds when you go further into that life cycle, right? And so
that makes sense.
Exactly. So for sure, that's like the one thing you always have to include. And then you work with your engineering team to lay out the specifications from a technical perspective. Like, how many engineers do we need to work on this within our team? Do we need the whole team? Do we need some? You typically work with your engineers just to lay out those specifications. but the product manager really comes with just the context and the why. And then you work with the team to lay out the rest. So it really depends on company to company what that document looks like. I think the most popular one that people hear of is the product requirement document, or PRD, which some people agree with, some people don't. So it's variable, but one thing I've seen consistent across the board is just the why.
That makes
so
sense.
Important.
Yeah.